in the heart of the kingdom of Ardenthal, Queen Elara reigned beside her husband, King Alden, a wise but aging ruler. Her beauty was the envy of every noble, but her hunger for power was something far darker. When the king fell gravely ill, his younger brother, Prince Cedric, began gathering influence among the court. Whispers spread that Cedric might soon ascend the throne, for the queen had yet to bear an heir. Ilara's pride turned to terror. She could not bear to see another crowned while she still drew breath. Behind her calm smile, she planned her strike. One evening, she invited the prince to a lavish banquet. The entire court gathered under golden chandeliers, unaware they were witnessing history's quietest assassination. During the final toast, Elara offered Cedric a goblet of ruby wine, saying softly, "To family, the bond that keeps us whole." The prince smiled and drank. Within moments, his face paled, his breath faltered, and his body collapsed onto the marble floor. Elara's scream pierced the hall, a performance so perfect even grief itself might have applauded.
She wept over his body as servants rushed in, claiming the prince had fallen to a sudden illness.
The kingdom mourned, the rumors faded, and Elara's power solidified.
But years later, when her own son became king,
he uncovered the alchemist's journal, with her name signed beneath the poison recipe. In her final years, Elara lived alone in silence, haunted by the echo of Cedric's last gasp. The crown she killed for became her eternal curse. Queen Marguerite of Durnhelm and her younger sister, Princess Alina, were once inseparable, two radiant daughters of a powerful dynasty. But when the gallant knight Sir Rohan arrived at court, both sisters' hearts turned toward him. The knight, noble and pure of heart, chose Alina, not for her title, but for her kindness. That rejection cut Marguerite deeper than any blade. When she ascended the throne after their father's death, Marguerite's jealousy festered beneath her golden crown. Every smile Alina received, every song sung in her honor, reminded Marguerite of the man she could not have. In her envy, she declared her sister bewitched the knight, accusing her of sorcery to manipulate love. The court trembled as Alina, innocent and terrified, was dragged to the dungeons. Margaret visited her once, standing coldly behind iron bars. "You took what was mine?" she whispered. "Now you will take nothing from anyone." Weeks later, under the cover of a storm, fire consumed the tower. The guards claimed lightning struck, but witnesses swore they saw the queen's cloak vanish into the night just before the flames rose. The people turned against her. Rebellion spread. The kingdom that once thrived under her father's legacy fell into ruin. Alone in her crumbling castle, Marguerite watched her realm burn as she once burned her sister, her jealousy fulfilling the prophecy of her own downfall. Queen Isolde of Varathia was famed for her beauty, yet her marriage to King Roderick was built on politics, not passion. Behind the marble walls of the palace, she found solace in forbidden love, a court musician whose voice could calm her restless heart. Their affair remained secret until a jealous courtier whispered the truth to the king. Humiliated, Roderick ordered the musician executed at dawn. Isolde begged for mercy, but her pleas fell upon deaf ears. When the blade fell, something inside her broke. The queen, who once ruled with grace, turned into a woman consumed by revenge. That night,
as the king celebrated his victory over treachery, Isolde poured him his favorite wine, her hands steady, her heart frozen.
He smiled, toasted to his loyal queen, and within moments, collapsed, choking on his final breath. The court wept. The priests prayed, and Isolde, draped in black, played a single song on the harp. Her lover once touched a requiem for two lost souls. She ruled for years, but her nights were haunted by the melody of guilt.
When her time came, she was found beside the same harp, the strings still trembling from a final, ghostly tune.
Her death was ruled natural, but the servants swore they heard her whisper the musician's name, and the echo of their love carried through the halls long after the crown fell silent. Queen Adela of Norvin was everything a ruler should be: elegant, poised, and intelligent. The people loved her. The nobles feared her. And her husband, King Bernard, adored her. But when a young maiden named Leora entered the royal household, the king's gaze began to wander. At first, Adela ignored it, believing his heart would return. But jealousy is a slow-burning fire, and soon it devoured her reason. She summoned the royal apothecary under the veil of night and demanded a poison that kills with beauty. The apothecary, trembling, obeyed. One morning, Adela prepared the king's breakfast herself, fresh fruit, bread, and honey. She fed him lovingly, smiling as he praised her devotion. Within hours, his body turned cold. The court declared it a sudden illness. Adela's morning was flawless. But secrets never rest. Months later, Leora confronted Adela privately. "I know what you did," she whispered, "and I've already told the council." That evening, Adela's crown was stripped, and her punishment was poetic. She was forced to drink from the same cup that killed her husband as the poison burned through her veins. Adela's final words chilled the court. Better to die a queen than live as the forgotten wife of a fool. Her beauty was eternal, her secret unforgettable. In the age of divided kingdoms, two queens ruled side by side, Eleanor of Selwyn and Beatrice of Thornwall. Their alliance was meant to ensure peace, but rivalry grew like ivy between stone walls. Both were powerful, ambitious, and unwilling to be overshadowed. When Beatrice's daughter was promised to Eleanor's son, jealousy festered into hatred. Eleanor mocked Beatrice's fading beauty. Beatrice retaliated with whispers of treachery. The peace treaty became a weapon, and soon, blood was the only language left between them. At a grand banquet celebrating their unity, Beatrice presented Eleanor with a jeweled comb. "A gift for my dearest friend." She smiled. Eleanor, unaware of its secret, placed it in her hair that night. By dawn, she was found lifeless, her skin pale, her lips blue. The comb's tips were coated with a venom so rare, only royal apothecaries knew its name. Beatrice's triumph was short-lived. Her court turned on her, suspecting the truth. The assassins she trusted betrayed her, and she was found slain in her chamber, her own crown beside her bed, stained in blood. Both queens were buried beneath their banners, side by side. Their kingdoms crumbled in the chaos that followed. Their names etched in history not as rulers, but as rivals consumed by envied two monarchs who destroyed everything, including themselves. In the golden courts of Atheron, Queen Selene watched her husband, King Darius, shower his attention on Lady Arena, a young noblewoman whose laughter filled the halls like music. Once adored Selene now felt invisible, her beauty fading under the shadow of youth. Each smile the king gave Arena was a dagger. The queen's jealousy grew until it became an obsession. One evening, Selene summoned the royal cook and handed him a small vial. "For the lady's wine," she ordered coldly. But fate had its cruel humor. The goblets were switched during the feast. The king raised his cup, drank deeply, and within moments collapsed beside his throne. The hall erupted in chaos. Selene froze, her eyes wide, her scream echoing through marble walls. In her madness, she tried to cradle him, whispering that it was Arana's fault, but the truth spread fast, and when dawn came, Selene was found lifeless in her chamber, the same vial emptied beside her. Her jealousy claimed not one life, but two. The people remembered her not as the radiant queen she once was, but as the woman who destroyed her own heart in envy's name. Queen Amara and her sister Liana were born under the same crown, daughters of a dynasty feared and admired across the continent. But where Liana's grace drew love, Amara's cunning drew power. When a noble prince sought Liana's hand, Amara's envy ignited a hatred she could not conceal. During Liana's wedding feast, Amara embraced her sister with trembling hands. "You've always had what I wanted," she whispered softly, pressing a jeweled ring into her palm, a symbol of sisterly love. Hours later, Liana's laughter fell silent. She clutched her chest and collapsed before her new husband, her lips blue. The court mourned. Amara wept, her performance flawless. But when a servant found the apothecary S-note, a list of poisons signed with the Queen S-mark, the truth spread like wildfire. Dragged before her council, Amara denied everything until the very end. "I only wanted her gone," she screamed. Not dead. Yet the poison had spoken louder than her words. She was stripped of her title and left to live in exile, haunted by the echo of her sister's last breath. King Roland of Draventhal was a man torn between two women, his noble wife, Queen Vivian, and his mistress, the dancer Celeste. What began as passion soon became a deadly rivalry. The court whispered of love letters, secret meetings, and a queen's silent rage. Vivian's jealousy turned into artful cruelty. She welcomed Celeste to court, praising her beauty while planning her demise. During a grand performance, Celeste drank from a goblet the queen had personally offered. Within minutes, she collapsed before the king, the music halting in horror. Roland's grief consumed him. He withdrew from his queen, refusing to see her face. Months later, he was found dead, poisoned from the same cup. Vivian confessed to her priest that she had killed him by mistake, intending only to punish him with guilt. She died soon after, wearing her crown in her coffin, a crown of envy, forged from her own ruin. Queen Isabel of Morentia was adored for her charm, but despised for her secrets. Behind closed doors, she studied poisons like a scholar studies scripture. Each vial in her cabinet had a name: betrayal, lust, ambition, jealousy. When her husband, King Alaric, began favoring his young advisor, Isabel's old obsession returned. One evening, she invited the advisor to dine privately. "Let us speak as friends," she said sweetly. The young man, flattered, accepted. She poured him wine from her private collection, a crimson liquid that shimmered under candlelight. Moments later, he gasped, clutching his throat. Isabel smiled softly, whispering, "You should have stayed loyal to your king." But fate's revenge was swift. The next morning, Alaric discovered the body and the poisoned cup. Furious, he demanded she drink from it to prove her innocence. With icy grace, Isabel lifted the cup and sipped. Her smile faded as the venom claimed her. Her last words: "A queen must always finish what she begins." The castle of Valar stood tall, but its walls hid secrets darker than night. Queen Katarina had everything: wealth, beauty, and a husband who loved another. The mistress, a noble woman named Elise, became the queen's silent rival. Katarina's jealousy turned to plotting. She lured Elise into friendship, inviting her daily for tea. One afternoon, as rain poured outside, she served Elise a delicate pastry laced with night. Minutes later, Elise convulsed, her teacup shattering on the marble floor. The king, broken by grief, locked himself away, refusing food or company. Katarina believed she had won until guilt consumed her. The castle grew cold. Servants whispered her name in fear, and every mirror seemed to show Elise's ghost. One winter morning, the queen was found dead at her table, her lips blackened from poison. A single cup sat beside her, untouched but filled with tea. In her final act, Katarina had punished herself with the same poison she once poured for another. The throne of Valar remained empty, haunted by the shadow of jealousy that destroyed them all. Queen Morena of Caldor lived in the shadow of her husband's mistress, the radiant Lady Céline, whose laughter echoed through the marble halls like music. Once adored, Morena now watched from behind her jeweled mask as her power slipped away. Every whisper of Céline's name felt like a blade twisting deeper.
Unable to bear the humiliation, Morena turned to her most trusted knight. "Sir Leon, end her," she commanded.
Make it look like fate itself struck her down. The knight hesitated, but the queen's tears and promises of power clouded his honor.
One cold evening, Céline's carriage was ambushed on the forest road.
Arrows flew, and silence followed. The court mourned her death, never suspecting the queen's hand. But guilt is a serpent that never sleeps. When Leon was later accused of treason, Morena refused to protect him. Facing execution, he shouted before the crowd. The queen ordered the killing. The word spread like wildfire. Dragged from her throne, Morena was imprisoned in the same tower where Céline once sang. On the night of her death, she whispered to her reflection, "She stole my king, and I stole her peace." The following morning, her guards found her lifeless, her crown still upon her head.
Jealousy had claimed another queen.
And her kingdom never trusted beauty again in the realm of Tavain. Queen Rosalind had everything: riches, armies, and a husband whose devotion was legendary. Yet that love faltered when a foreign princess, Seraphine, visited the court. Seraphine's elegance captivated the king, and Rosalind's heart turned to ash. Her envy consumed her like a fever. One evening, she gifted the princess a necklace, saying, "For beauty that outshines even the sun." The jewel sparkled, and within days Seraphine fell gravely ill. No physician could explain her mysterious sickness. Rosalind's triumph was short-lived. The king discovered the necklace's origin, a design reserved for the royal poisoner. His heartbreak turned to wrath. He condemned Rosalind to live alone in the convent of Silent Sisters, forbidden to speak her own name again. Years passed. She watched from afar as Seraphine's homeland conquered Tavain, destroying everything Rosalind once ruled. The queen died behind stone walls, her lips sealed forever, her jealous heart the price of her own destruction. Two queens shared one empire, quarrelers bound by politics, not affection. Queen Leora ruled the east with wisdom, Queen Selene, the west with pride. But peace rarely blooms where power divides. When Selene learned that Leora's son would inherit the entire empire, jealousy devoured her reason. She invited Leora to a sister's feast, swearing eternal loyalty. The meal was lavish, the wine rich and poisoned. As Leora gasped for breath, Selene knelt beside her, whispering, "You always had the people's love. Now you'll have their tears." The following morning, Leora's supporters revolted. Selene's throne was stormed, her guards slain. Before her execution, she confessed, "I killed my sister to keep the crown and lost the kingdom instead." Their empire collapsed within a year, buried under the weight of envy and betrayal. History remembered them not as queens, but as mirrors of greed, forever reflecting each other's ruin. Queen Evelyn was known as the Flower of Avalain, her beauty unmatched. But beauty fades, and when a younger lady-in-waiting began to catch the king's gaze, Evelyn's vanity turned venomous. She became obsessed with potions, mirrors, and charms, desperate to restore what time had taken. One night, the king found her burning herbs in the chapel, muttering ancient words. "You cannot keep what is already gone," he said gently. But Evelyn had already made her choice. She laced his evening wine with wolfsbane, believing his death would seal her power forever. Yet the next morning, she stared into her mirror and saw not beauty, but a pale reflection with blood on its lips. The nobles discovered her secret and locked her away. Evelyn spent her final days surrounded by mirrors, whispering, "I was the fairest once." When she died, every mirror in the palace shattered, as if the castle itself rejected her vanity. Queen Thalia and Lord Renard had been lovers long before the throne was hers. When she married King Leopold, it was not for love, but for empire. Still, her affair continued. Secret glances in the corridor, stolen letters beneath candlelight. When the king discovered them, he spared no mercy. Renard was executed, his body displayed as a warning. Thalia's grief became wrath. She plotted for months,
Pretending devotion while planning revenge.
On the king's birthday, she presented him with a golden ring, a symbol of renewal. He wore it proudly, unaware the band's inner lining was coated with a slow-working toxin. Each day, the poison seeped deeper into his blood, until one morning, he never rose again. Thalia ruled as regent, powerful yet hollow. On her final night, she confessed to her confessor, "I killed him to free myself, but I only chained my soul." When she died, the ring was found still upon her finger, its poison long faded, its curse eternal. Queen Adriel of Thander had everything except affection. Her husband, King Edrin, adored another, a gentle healer named Myron. The people whispered that Myron's touch could cure the king's pain, but Adriel knew it cured something deeper: his loneliness.
Jealousy became her companion.
Each time the king smiled at Myron, Adriel's heart hardened. One winter night, she sent for the healer under the guise of gratitude.
"You've done what I could not," she said sweetly, pouring 2 cups of spiced wine.
As Myron drank, Her eyes widened. The cup slipped from her hand.
By morning, Myron was dead, and Adrielle wept beside her husband, feigning shock.
But Edrin saw through the tears. He ordered her, confined to her chambers, stripped of title and honor. In solitude, Adrielle clutched her crown and whispered, "I only wanted to be loved." When the king died years later, she attended his funeral veiled in black. The crowd fell silent as she collapsed beside his coffin, poisoned by her own hand. Love never came for her, but death did, and it was the only thing that stayed. In the twin courts of Eldara, two queens ruled side by side, cousins by blood, enemies by fate. Queen Lysandra was fierce and cunning, while Queen Corinne was gentle and adored by the people. What began as rivalry turned deadly when the king named Corinne's son as heir. Lysandra's pride could not bear it. "If the child lives, I am nothing," she hissed to her alchemist. That night, at the Feast of Unity, she handed Corinne a goblet of wine. "To sisterhood," she said, smiling. Corinne drank, and moments later fell lifeless before the court. Panic erupted, and Lysandra's calm betrayed her guilt. Guards found the alchemist's notes, and the truth spread faster than poison itself. The council declared that Lysandra's punishment would mirror her crime, death by the same wine she had offered. As she drank, she whispered, "Better to die, queen, than live forgotten." Her story lived on as a warning. In royal courts, envy kills faster than any blade. Queen Helena's life was defined by bitterness. Her husband, King Oron, adored their son, the young Prince Darien, but never his mother. The boy was her husband's pride, his legacy, his joy. Helena felt invisible, forgotten even by her own child. In her desperation, she began to fear that once Darien took the throne, she would lose everything. One night, while preparing his medicine, Helena added a drop of a sleeping tonic, one she knew would never let him wake. The kingdom fell into mourning. The queen played her role well, her cries echoing through the halls. But when the royal physician found traces of the rare herb moonshade in the prince's cup, suspicion turned toward her. She was imprisoned in the tower that once housed her son's cradle. There, she kept the crown by her bed and whispered, "I only wanted his love." When she died, no priest came to bless her. Even the bells of the kingdom stayed silent, as if the land itself refused to mourn her name. Queen Valeria of Orwyn was famous for her charm and infamous for her temper. Her husband, King Tobias, was drawn to a court noble, Lady Ivana, whose wit and beauty rivaled the queen's. Valeria pretended indifference but plotted vengeance.
She invited Ivana to a private luncheon, saying she wished to forgive and forget.
The food was exquisite, venison glazed with honey, fruits dipped in rosewater and poisoned wine. Ivana died smiling, unaware her forgiveness was fatal. But the queen's triumph was brief. That night, the king learned of Ivana's death and demanded the truth. When Valeria refused to confess, he drew his sword in rage, and she, in fear, drove a dagger through his chest. The palace fell silent. The guards found her beside his body, her dress stained in crimson. "I loved him more than my crown," she whispered as they led her away. The dynasty ended with her death. Her portrait still hangs in Orwyn's great hall, eyes full of fire, as if still watching for betrayal. Queen Seraphina of Dalvorn was known as the most beautiful woman in all the kingdoms, a beauty that became her curse. When her husband grew old and weak, he took a young concubine, Lyria, whose youthful glow began to eclipse Seraphine's fame. Unable to bear the comparison, Seraphina visited her alchemist and demanded a potion to make me eternal. The man warned her, "Eternity comes at a cost." She ignored him. The potion worked, her skin glowed, her youth returned. But there was a darker secret. The potion's effect required blood. Each month, she took small doses from her husband, draining his vitality, while hers flourished. The king's health faded until his death was declared natural. Yet soon after, her reflection began to change. Her eyes blackened, her smile twisted. She died alone, her once perfect face unrecognizable. The people whispered that vanity turned her into a monster, proof that beauty, when worshipped too deeply, devours the soul itself. Queen Althea of Veridel was adored by her people, but feared by her court. Her intelligence was unmatched, but her heart hid a secret storm: jealousy. The king's new advisor, a young scholar named Elias, had captured the king's trust. Together, they made decisions without her counsel. Althea's pride shattered. She convinced herself that Elias sought the throne, not the kingdom's good. Late one night, she summoned her apothecary and demanded, "Make me something that kills without mercy, yet leaves no trace." The next morning, a grand feast was held in Elias's honor. Althea poured his drink herself, her smile tender. "To wisdom," she said softly. Within moments, Elias collapsed, his lips purple. The hall erupted in panic. Althea feigned shock, but guilt bloomed faster than applause.
The king withdrew from her, hollowed by suspicion.
When the royal physician discovered the traces of nightshade in Elias's cup, Althea was accused. She faced her fate without tears. "I killed not for power," she whispered, "but for the throne that forgot me." The poison queen died as she lived unrepentant, regal, and cursed by envy's crown. Queen Evelina of Norwin was famed for her elegance, her gowns woven from gold thread, her perfumes rare as jewels. But her beauty was a mask for something darker. Her husband, King Rowan, had grown distant, spending his evenings with his charming cousin, Reddy Karates. Evelina's jealousy festered until it became unbearable. She devised a gift that would bring her revenge in silence: a silk gown, threaded with poison. One evening, she presented it to Clarice, saying sweetly, "A gift worthy of your grace." Clarice wore it proudly. Within hours, she fell ill, her skin burning with unseen fire. The court was horrified, yet Evelina stood unmoved. But justice has its ways. The poison seeped through Evelina's own hands while she handled the gown. Within days, her skin grew pale, her veins darkened, and her beauty began to fade. On her deathbed, she whispered, "I killed her and took myself with her." The gown was burned, but the tale of the queen who killed with silk lingered in Norwin forever. Queen Corvina of Erelon ruled beside a gentle king who trusted her with all matters of the court. Yet Corvina's heart was filled with fear. Fear of losing control, of fading into
When a young noblewoman, Lady Sira, began advising the king, Corvina's envy turned deadly.
She had the girl invited to dinner, pretending friendship. The queen's wine shimmered under candlelight golden, sweet, and deadly. After Sira's sudden death, the king grew distant. His health, too, began to fail. Corvina's poison worked slowly, not just in his body, but in his trust. She ruled in his name, her power absolute. But guilt leaves marks no crown can hide. In her final years, Corvina confessed her sins to a monk. "I killed for love," she said, trembling. The monk's reply was soft but cold. "You killed for fear." When she died, her tomb was sealed without inscription, a silent warning that the throne often hides more corpses than kings. Queen Mariana of Galthon was a woman of grace, but her beauty was fading. Her husband, the king, had grown fond of a young poet named Thea, whose verses often praised a love brighter than the crown. The court adored her, and Mariana could no longer bear it. During a royal celebration, the queen approached Thea, smiling sweetly. "Sing for us," she said. The poet began, her voice soft as silk. But before she could finish, Mariana clapped her hands. Guards stepped forward and seized Thea. Accused of treasonous words, Thea was executed at dawn, her final song unfinished. The people mourned, and the king's heart broke. He never spoke to his queen again. Mariana grew old in silence, her throne cold and empty. On her deathbed, she whispered, "I silenced her, but the echoes never stopped." To this day, it is said that every full moon, Thea's song can still be heard in the castle halls, haunting the queen who could not endure her rival's light. In the house of Valinor, envy ran deeper than blood. two sisters, Alara and Serene, were destined to rule together. But when their father named Serena's sole heir, Alara's heart filled with venom, she plotted for years, gathering allies, waiting for the right moment. During Serene's coronation, Alara embraced her, tears glistening. "You will make a glorious queen," she said, and slipped a silver pin into her sister's cloak. Hours later, Serene collapsed, the poison from the pin spreading through her veins. The court descended into chaos. Alara claimed ignorance, weeping before the nobles until a servant found the vial hidden in her chambers. "Condemned to death," she whispered. "I only took what should have been mine." Both sisters were buried in the same tomb, their crowns crossed above their names. Historians say the flowers placed on their graves wither overnight, as if envy itself still lingers in the royal bloodline. Queen Selene of Marinth was known across kingdoms for her beauty. But when an artist unveiled a portrait of a noblewoman said to rival her looks, jealousy struck like lightning. The king admired the painting endlessly, calling it perfection captured. Each compliment burned Selene's pride deeper, determined to destroy her unseen rival. The queen demanded the artist reveal the woman's name. He refused, claiming she was a muse, not mortal. Furious, Selene accused him of witchcraft and had him imprisoned. But her obsession didn't rest. She ordered the portrait burned, only to discover too late that the pigments were mixed with a rare poison. As the flames rose, the toxic smoke filled her chambers. Selene inhaled deeply before her guards could reach her. The next morning, she was found pale and still, her fingers clutching a scrap of canvas. The painted woman's eyes staring back at her through the charred remains. Her final words, whispered to the guards, were, "She was never real. And yet she killed me." The painting, it said, was never found again. Queen Adriel's reign began with love, but envy soon corrupted her peace. Her husband, King Darian, often praised his younger sister, Princess Ellen, calling her the heart of the kingdom. To Adriel, those words felt like daggers. The people adored Ellen, and whispers began that she would make a better queen.
Adriel's jealousy grew into hatred.
One evening, she invited Ellen to dine privately, serving wine from the vineyards of their ancestors. Hours later, Ellen was dead, her lips stained crimson, her eyes wide with betrayal.
The king's grief was immeasurable.
He withdrew from Adriel, and within months, rumors of her crime spread. Fearing exposure, she fled the palace, disguised as a commoner. But guilt hunted her relentlessly. She was found years later in a convent, praying for forgiveness that never came. The crown she once wore sat locked in the royal vault, its gold forever tarnished by her sin. They said the blood she spilled never truly dried. Queen Thalira loved grandeur. Her palace glittered with jewels. Her banquets rivaled the heavens. But beauty could not soothe her when her husband began favoring Lady Morel, a lady-in-waiting of stunning charm. To reclaim her pride, Thalira planned a masquerade ball, declaring it a night of secrets and shadows. She gifted each guest a mask, and for Lady Morel, one specially laced with a rare powder that sealed her fate. As the night danced on, laughter echoed through the halls until Morel collapsed, her mask clutched to her face. Chaos ensued, but Thalira stood frozen, feigning horror. Her crime went unnoticed until the following spring when roses in the palace garden began to wither wherever Thalira walked. The king, tormented by loss and suspicion, banished her to a remote abbey. There, the queen spent her final years making masks for the convent's festivals. Every one shaped like the face of the woman she killed. Queen Leora of the Northern Lakes was famed as the Black Swan, graceful, mysterious, and feared. Yet even she was not immune to jealousy. Her husband had taken in a foreign diplomat, a young woman named Amara, whose intellect dazzled the court. When the king began seeking Amara's counsel more than his wife's, Leora's pride shattered. She ordered her guards to drown the woman in the icy lake at midnight, whispering,
Let her beauty sink where no one can see it again. The next morning, swans gathered on the frozen water, circling a single crimson stain.
The kingdom mourned Amara's disappearance. But Leora smiled, believing herself victorious. Months later, the queen began to waste away, her reflection in mirrors growing fainter each day. On the anniversary of the murder, she vanished, leaving behind only black feathers on her bed. To this day, locals say alone, Swan circles the lake on winter nights, its cry sounding eerily like the queen's voice, begging for forgiveness. Queen Seraphine of Talruth was beautiful beyond words, and painfully aware of it. When a young duchess named Elaine arrived at court, her emerald eyes and radiant smile outshone even the queen. The king's admiration for Elaine was innocent, but in Seraphine's mind, it was treason. Consumed by jealousy, the queen offered Elaine a token of friendship, a jeweled ring said to bring luck. But beneath the gemstone was a poison that seeped into the skin. Days later, Elaine's hand blackened, her body failing soon after. At first, Seraphine rejoiced in victory, but her triumph curdled when the king fell ill, having touched the same poisoned ring while comforting the dying duchess. He died within days, and the queen's secret became her curse. Overcome with guilt, Seraphine threw herself from the palace tower, clutching the cursed ring in her palm. When they found her body, her eyes had turned the same brilliant green as the woman she killed. The legend calls her the Green-Eyed Queen, destroyed by her own envy.